Hello and welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to talk about mass versus weight. This is going to be a short video, but it's an important distinction to make. In everyday conversations, we often use these terms interchangeably, and that's fine in a normal everyday conversation. We talk about weight or the mass of an object and mean the same thing. But when we're talking in science class, whether it's chemistry, physics, or whatever, they are distinct from each other. So a lot of time, most of the time, we're going to talk about the mass of an object. We're going to go into the lab and we're going to weigh out masses of things and not weights of things. So it's important to have this distinction in mind. So the mass of an object is basically the amount of matter in that object. And so matter, I'll go ahead and define that term now. Matter is anything that has uh, mass. And takes up space, or this is also volume. So mass is the amount of matter that's in a particular object. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space or has mass and volume. Weight is going to be a measure of the force of gravity. So that's going to be, if you remember in physics, weight is equal to the mass of the object. So mass is involved, multiplied by the amount of gravity. So it's going to be the mass times the amount of gravity. So the weight is equal to mass times gravity. So the gravity is involved in weight. So it's not just mass alone. So this is important to remember that you're multiplying gravity. So gravity is involved in figuring out what weight is. So your weight is going to change depending on the force acting on the body, the force of the mass. And so you could be weightless because maybe the forces are acting on you are equally canceling each other out, right? So maybe if you're in a weightless situation, for example, if you're in space, or if you're on the moon has 1/6 the amount of gravity on Earth. So if you go to the moon, your weight's going to be different because it's going to be 1/6 the weight you are now. So your weight is going to change depending on where you're at. Okay, so even if you're in a valley, if you're down in a valley versus up at the mountain peak, your distance from the center of the Earth, the center of gravity of the Earth, changes. So your weight is going to change a little as well. Your mass is not going to change. The amount of stuff you have in you doesn't change when you go from one place to another, right? So that's going to stay the same. Your mass doesn't change relative to where you are. Your weight is going to change. And that's because, remember, you have a force of gravity acting on you. And again, that force of gravity can change depending on where you are, your position. And that's pretty much the distinction I want to make. So keep that in mind. So a lot of times when you say the word weight or use the term weight, you actually ought to mean, or you mean, mass. So make that distinction clear. Okay, thank you for watching this video.